at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on a BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dewbs and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good evening. It's me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, on State of the Nation tonight.
It's incredibly important that we tell China and Hong Kong that our values are not up for trade. The freedom of our people will never be up for trade.
The Prime Minister flies to China today to perform a metaphoric kowtow to Peking. While China spies on us, Downing Street and the government insists it will take a grown-up approach to relations. But Britain should not be sucking up to China while Jimmy lies in durance vile. Also tonight.
At first, this force will set standards and lift administrative tasks off local forces. But in time, it will draw in all national crime-fighting responsibilities.
The Home Secretary has announced far-reaching reforms to the police, proposing a reduction in the number of forces by up to 2/3, the rolling out of facial recognition technology and the abolition of police and crime commissioners. But will this efficiency drive result in many areas, particularly rural, being deprived of effective policing? Will it improve value for money? Plus,
Labour's Chagos surrender humiliation continues. Today we were hoping...
The Shadow Foreign Secretary, Priti Patel, yesterday accused the government of sabotaging opportunities to debate the failing Chagos bill, saying the government is extending its humiliation after President Donald Trump withdrew his support. Is it time Labour gave up on its failed Chagos surrender? And the enigmatic Council of Europe is working on a motion to ban conversion therapy, a proposal put forward by a Labour MP. But what do we know about the Council of Europe? What's it do, and why do we never hear about its machinations? Do we deserve more transparency over the way our country is governed? State of the Nation starts now. I'll also be joined by my most pugnacious panel, the former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, and the journalist and broadcaster, Michael Crick. As ever, as always, let me know what you think, mailmog@gbnews.com. But now it's your favourite time of the day, the news bulletin with the sesquipedalian Sam Francis.
Jacob, thank you. Sesquid of what? I'll leave those words to you, I think. Anyway, the headlines. Andy Burnham is rejecting claims tonight that he knew Labour would block his candidacy before putting his name forward for the Gorton and Denton by-election. The Greater Manchester Mayor says it's simply untrue that senior figures warned him the decision had already been made, insisting the party's ruling body is meant to act independently. His intervention comes as around 50 Labour MPs are reported to have signed a letter urging the party to rethink, warning the move risks looking like a stitch-up. Well, that by-election was, of course, triggered by the resignation of the former MP Andrew Gwynn, who stood down citing health reasons. With polling expected next month, here's what Andy Burnham told broadcasters a short time ago.
Simply untrue to say that I was told that I would be blocked. So I can't say any more than that. I went through the whole weekend having conversations with people in Number 10, people in senior positions of the party, to discuss the pros and cons, and that's all I can say. It's simply untrue to say that there was a message given that I would definitely be blocked, because after all, the NEC is meant to be an independent body, so how could somebody say that it's definitely going to be blocked if they are an independent body? So it doesn't stack up what they are saying, and it is simply untrue, as I said.
Meanwhile, the academic Matt Goodwin has been announced as Reform UK's parliamentary candidate for that by-election in Gorton and Denton today. It's likely to take place on the 26th of February. The by-election triggered after that resignation, as I mentioned, by Andrew Gwynn. Candidates for the other parties have not yet been announced. Labour, the Greens, the Conservatives, the Liberal Democrats and the Workers' Party are all set to announce their candidates in the coming days and weeks. And we will, of course, bring those announcements to you. A growing political row tonight over Labour's tax break for pubs as the Conservatives accuse the government of a half-hearted U-turn. From April, pubs and live music venues will get 15% off their business rates, but cafes, hotels and restaurants, well, they won't. The Tory leader Kemi Badenoch says Labour's move isn't fooling anyone, arguing thousands of businesses are still being clobbered by higher taxes. The Chancellor, though, insists that the distinction between pubs and other venues is deliberate and said pubs are different and they deserve special protections.
We've committed to publish a high street strategy and to look at the methodology for hotels as well. So we do understand some of those specific concerns. Pubs are different. They are a huge community asset. 7,000 pubs closed under the last Conservative government, and we've got to do more to protect our pubs.
Rwanda is taking the UK to court, demanding money it says it's owed after Britain scrapped the controversial migrant deal. The Rwandan government has launched legal action at the Permanent Court of Arbitration, arguing the UK broke financial commitments made under the asylum partnership. That deal, signed under the previous Conservative government, was ditched by Sir Keir Starmer, with ministers saying future payments that could have been worth more than £200 million would not be paid. Downing Street says it will robustly defend the case and called the scheme a complete disaster. Rwanda, though, says it is owed the money and wants a legal ruling to settle the dispute. And the Home Office is investigating allegations that migrants are buying fake jobs to stay in the UK. An undercover investigation by The Times found visa agents offering forged job records, CVs, payslips and payroll documents, all to secure skilled worker visas. Some migrants were allegedly charged up to £13,000 for work that didn't exist. Ministers say the activity is illegal and won't be tolerated, pointing to tougher checks, higher refusal rates and falling visa applications. But opposition parties say the findings expose deep flaws in the system and a black market exploiting both migrants and the rules designed to control immigration. Well, that was your most favourite time of the day. The news headlines with me, Sam Francis. Now, though, it's over to Jacob.
Welcome back to State of the Nation. The Prime Minister can't say Britain can afford to ignore the opportunities presented by China as he prepares to become the first UK Prime Minister in 8 years to visit Peking, called Beijing by communist sympathisers. Flanked by dozens of businessmen, Sir Keir Starmer says his trip is about pragmatism, trade, growth and not sticking our head in the sand. He says Britain does not have to choose between China and the United States and that engagement can happen without compromising security. But there is a problem at the heart of this, and that is the issue of the wrongly imprisoned British citizen Jimmy Lai. China is not just a trading partner, it is an authoritarian state that imprisons its critics, crushes dissent, and ignores international obligations. That's when it's not busy spying on us. Jimmy Lai remains behind bars for the crime of standing up for democracy in Hong Kong, which ought to be allowed under the agreement signed by Margaret Thatcher and Deng Xiaoping, the joint declaration prior to the handover of Hong Kong in 1997. Mr. Lai is jailed under Peking's national security law, not because he did anything wrong, but because he dared to challenge the reduction of free speech in Hong Kong imposed by the mainland communist Chinese. British citizenship should mean that when a hostile state abuses the rights of one of our citizens, the British government does not carry on flattering and making agreements with the perpetrator. They don't abide by their agreements. That's the whole point. The joint declaration is not being followed. You can't trust them. Yet instead of demanding his release, the Prime Minister is kowtowing for significant opportunities and approving further engagement as China continues to refuse to release Mr. Lai. This sends a message that economics and photo opportunities matter more than the basic liberty of a British citizen. Foreign policy involves difficult choices, but some principles should not be negotiable. A government that cannot demand the freedom of a wrongfully imprisoned British citizen has no business talking about values, human rights, or the rule of law, because it doesn't really believe in them. Until Jimmy Lai walks free, Britain should not be expanding relations or cooperation with China or pretending this is a normal partnership. The Prime Minister should be clear: no cooperation with China until Jimmy Lai is released. As always, let me know what you think, mailmog@gbnews.com. But I'm now joined by the former Security Minister, Tom Tugendhat. Tom, thank you for joining me. Are you still persona non grata as far as China is concerned?
Yes, sadly, all of my assets in China have been seized. I mean, you know, this has left me short of absolutely nothing at all. But I am sanctioned by the Chinese Communist Party for the extraordinary abuse of standing up for Chinese citizens in Hong Kong, what we call Hong Kongers, but calling for their democratic rights as guaranteed, as you correctly said, in the deal struck between Margaret Thatcher and Deng Xiaoping, that should be recognised, which sadly it is not.
So what we have is a Prime Minister who is going out to China with MPs who are still sanctioned, with democracy completely ignored, to do on-the-side deals that may earn us a pound or two, but not making the fundamental point that China ought to behave properly in the international arena.
Well, let's just be clear. Jimmy Lai is in prison for the crime of what you're doing right now, journalism. I mean, if that's a crime, then frankly, the UK should all be arrested. And it's absolutely extraordinary that our Prime Minister has gone out to Beijing without even getting a prior agreement on these things. It's genuinely extraordinary. He's given away two big wins to the Chinese. The first is his visit, which demonstrates a certain legitimacy. And the second, of course, is the embassy, which I'm sure you'll want to come on to. But he's given both of these away without getting anything in return. We still have Chinese diplomats who are beating up protesters in the United Kingdom. We still have huge amounts of industrial espionage in the United Kingdom. We still have the extraordinary sight of Chinese students being forced, in many cases, to spy on their friends and classmates. You know, all of these should stop. And the Prime Minister should not be going to China until they have agreed to stop them.
Absolutely. And the reason I pay so much attention to Jimmy Lai is because China made an agreement with us, the joint declaration, in good faith, which we had a reasonable expectation would be fulfilled. And it seems to me absolutely pointless to go out and make further agreements with China if the main agreement between the two countries is ignored.
Well, I agree with you. And, you know, let's look at this agreement just for a second, because, you know, we've just been told that we have to obey the jurisdiction of a non-binding court that has no authority over the Chagos Islands in the Indian Ocean. But somehow or other, we're supposed to ignore a treaty signed between two sovereign states, China and the United Kingdom, lodged with the United Nations, and that therefore now has the strength, the validity of international law. Now, why are we listening to one and not the other? Well, it seems that international law, according to some lawyers, is a rather more elastic concept than they would like us to believe.
And that when you look at the embassy as well, in both cases, the British government is showing weakness. And that China is not a stupid country. It may be a totalitarian regime, but the leadership isn't stupid. And they respond to weakness by demanding more. The only countries who ever have a proper relationship with China are the ones who stand up to it. Do you think that's a fair analysis?
I think it's completely accurate. And you know, don't just look at the United Kingdom, look at the way that China has behaved towards other countries in Europe or indeed in Southeast Asia and across the world. Consistently, those countries that stand up to it, there's then the claim that somehow or other this is going to damage trade. But Jacob, I know this is a radical idea, but trade isn't an act of charity. Trade is what happens when people have something to sell and you have a client who wants to buy it. That's trade. It's not charity, it's not gifts, it's not global communism. It's the nature of exchange between human beings who want and who need.
Oh, and also we buy much more off China than they buy from us, and that the Chinese economy has not been growing as fast as has hoped. I mean, their figures are all nonsense, and they met their target for last year, but nobody actually believes that that is true. I bet Rachel Reeves wishes she could make the figures up like that. They need to sell to us. It's crucially important to their social cohesion that they maintain high levels of employment. So not all the cards are with the communists.
No, I completely agree, and more than that, actually. If you look at the one of the most horrific policies of Deng Xiaoping, which is, of course, the one-child policy, which led to not only enormous personal suffering for many families who were denied the opportunity to have more than one child, but actually, and this is what's massively underreported, also led to mass murders of not just fetuses aborted and children in wombs aborted, but actually to the murder of young children, what was used to be called euphemistically postnatal abortions. Not only was that a cruelty at the time, but actually it's having a really important effect, which is that China's growth rate is now on a catastrophically low level. And therefore what we're seeing a population getting much older, much older, before it can get rich. Now that's having real implications for the economy. It's having a disastrous impact on the housing market. And we can see it in various different figures across China. So the idea that this is one powerful state and one weak state, I'm afraid is complete rubbish. The United Kingdom has got problems. Look, you're not going to hear me say that we don't. But the reality is I would rather be trying to govern the United Kingdom than China any day of the week. China has got a really, really bad bet, which is that its population is falling, its economy is struggling, and the only way that it can survive is more and more repression.
All right, Tom, thank you very much for joining me. I've now got my panel with me, Kelvin Mackenzie and Michael Crick. Michael, I understand the matter of realpolitik, that prime ministers have to visit powerful countries, but doesn't Keir Starmer do too much of this, and isn't he too craven?
Well, certainly he's craven at times when it comes to President Don Trump, as I call him these days.
Does he call you Mick Crick?
Well, he calls himself Don himself. It refers to the Don Row doctrine, and it reminds one of his kind of way of operating as a mafia boss. But no, seriously, I mean, I'm a great admirer of Tom Tugendhat, particularly on this issue. And I have been arguing for years about the university's over-reliance on China. I think the danger is here that if you base the whole of whether Starmer goes to China around this one case, and I think it's outrageous that Jimmy Lai is in jail, you can't. It's then harder to raise all the other issues. I mean, one, for instance, and it's an issue, again, I've been banging on about for years, and nobody ever seems to know anything about it, is the way in which China, as a matter of trying to control dissidents, and particularly members of the Falun Gong religion, takes people, rips all their organs out, and sells them on the international organ market. And if you murder one person that way, you can sell 5 or 6 organs around the world. And I made a film about this. I mean, this has became a few years ago a business worth to China $100 million a year. I mean, that is the most appalling human rights problem. Now, I hope Starmer will raise all of these issues. And then, when they ask him afterwards, have you raised them, he will talk about them to journalists.
Indeed. Calvin, is there a problem with the British establishment in its dealings with China? Because actually, it's not just Starmer, is it, that previous British governments have done the same, the Cameron Osborne approach?
Yeah.
And is there...
Well, I think I'd make 2 points. One, we're going out there. None of them have got their phones. Have you seen that? They're only going to use burner phones. That's the whole lot. All the greatest businessmen in our time, the greatest politicians, our Prime Minister, are going out there with burner phones. What moment have we arrived where we feel we have to do business with them? My second point is, I find it laughable, absolutely laughable, that we have a Prime Minister saying, for our economy's sake, we have to do business with people we don't like. This is a man who has run our economy into the ground. Right, we have record unemployment. We have more companies going bust today than at any time in the last 5 years. The whole of everything that we believe in, house prices in collapse, people not being able to find work, people worried about their children and their grandchildren not being able to find work. And he says the place to go to is China. We can find some economic. He knows nothing about the economy.
But does he have a point that we need Chinese money, or we want Chinese money, that it creates employment in this country?
I wish we would sort out our own economy first, and then let's go. Let's go and encourage business people in our country to invest in our nation, or try and encourage the whole of Europe to invest it. There is no earthly reason of going out to see people like the Chinese who will literally use that money against us and against their own people.
But the logical conclusion of what you're arguing, and indeed what Tom argued, and maybe what Jacob's arguing, is that, well, in which case we should have nothing to do with China. We should say, right, we're not buying any more goods from you, right. You're not buying any more goods from us, and it's over.
Okay. Yeah,
and the consequences of that would just be so hugely damaging.
Well, hold on, it can't be more damaging than some of the stuff Starmer's done already.
We're in a weak position here, but if Starmer raises all of these issues and is firm about it and makes it clear afterwards that he's raised them, that will at least...
Do you honestly, Michael, do you honestly believe that he will raise them, right? He's a lawyer. He's never going to raise them, or he'll raise them in such a way that
he was telling a lie today. Well, he was being misleading today because he said today that he would raise them.
Well, OK, he raises all these points, but he raises them in such a way that they all say, yes, good point, we'll think about that. Honestly, they're not thinking about anything. They don't have to think about anything. They're hugely powerful country, and actually we are turned ourselves into basically handmaidens to them. I think
I agree with that, but I can't see any alternative. On the phones thing, by the way, the story that came out about them hacking Downing Street phones. Well, I think on that one, I just hope that our security services are doing the same thing to them.
But what about carrying burner phones?
Yeah, I know.
The whole of this group, everybody, the Prime Minister down to the Chief Executive.
OK, but doesn't Michael have a point that Prime Ministers have to do this? We may not like it. It may be the grubby business of politics. Yeah. Michael hates him going to see Donald Trump. I hate him going to see President Xi. But actually, this is what Prime Ministers have to do. It's how it works.
Well, in that case, let's not try and pretend. Let's not try and pretend that any good will come out of this.
OK, well, thank you very much, my panel. In a moment.
At first, this force will set standards and lift administrative tasks off local forces. But in time, it will draw in all national crime-fighting responsibilities.
The Home Secretary has announced far-reaching reforms to the police, proposing a reduction in the number of forces by about 2/3. But will this efficiency drive result in many areas being deprived of effective policing?
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
A baby. It's a terrifying moment on a Welsh roadside that turned into a miracle. Two men rushed towards danger, not away from it, with flames spreading and a baby trapped inside a locked car. Instinct took over. Seconds mattered, lives changed, and heroes emerged against all odds. I'm joined by one of those heroes now, Wesley Bainan from South Wales. Wesley, may I just say, thank you for what you did. Quite incredible. Talk to me about what happened and your response to it.
Firstly, thank you. I was basically driving back towards Merthyr from picking up a part for a car. And myself and my uncle and my auntie were travelling in my car, spotted a car in the lay-by, which was smoking quite a considerable amount. As we were passing the lay-by, we were aware that there was a woman at the side of the vehicle, clearly in distress. So we pulled over, by which point we'd realised the vehicle was on fire. We ran down to the vehicle. She was screaming horrifically, screaming out her baby was still in the car. Literally just, I went straight to the back doors thinking the baby would be in the back seat. And the baby wasn't. The back door was locked. I went back to the driver's door, opened the driver's door, and didn't think nothing of it, just climbed inside, leaned over, opened the passenger door.
I mean, she must have been incredibly grateful to you.
She was, yes. She was. She was clearly in a state of shock and panic, as you could imagine. But she has been extremely thoughtful and has given no end of thanks from herself and her family.
Oh, well, look, you've done such an amazing job. Do we know why the car just decided to overheat and then burst into flames?
We don't. We have no idea yet. We have absolutely no idea.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Well, we were talking about China, and the mail mogs have come in by email, I think. Elizabeth says, Dear Jacob, China break every promise they made on Hong Kong, including the case of Jimmy Lai, yet Starmer has endorsed their proposed embassy in the city, which will make their spying activities easier. People speak about Donald Trump's erratic behaviour, but Starmer's behaviour can only be described as bewildering and dangerous. And Dave says Starmer has no moral compass and no sense of irony. Nancy raised a very interesting question. Jacob, why do the Pope and the Vatican trust China? The terms of their agreement are secret. The Catholics there have been betrayed by the very people who should be protecting them, the Pope and the Vatican officials. It is a disgrace. Why don't you mention this? Well, I will now you've raised it. I cannot tell you how wonderful I think Cardinal Zen is. He is one of the true heroes of Holy Mother Church, who stands up to Communist China, was himself fined, almost imprisoned, and he strongly opposed what the former Pope, Pope Francis, was trying to do to normalise relations between the Vatican and China, which the Vatican really should not do as long as China is torturing Catholics and indeed people of other religions. So Cardinal Zen is the man. The Home Secretary has unveiled what she's rather theatrically called the biggest shape-up policing in nearly 200 years, including cutting the number of police forces by up to 2/3, scrapping police and crime commissioners, and rolling out the use of facial recognition technology.
First, this force will set standards and lift administrative tasks off local forces. But in time, it will draw in all national crime-fighting responsibilities, including counter-terrorism policing, serious organised crime and fraud. This will ensure local forces are no longer distracted by national responsibilities, while at the same time creating an elite national force expert at fighting the ever more sophisticated criminals who are operating nationwide across our borders and online.
A new national police service, which some are calling a British FBI, aims to tackle serious and cross-border crime, but opponents are concerned the reforms could take policing away from local communities, especially in rural areas. So will this drive for efficiency, deliver better value for money, or simply create a more powerful state further removed from its citizens? On my panel still with me, Michael Crick and Kelvin McKenzie. Kelvin, the FBI under J. Edgar Hoover was one of the most corrupt organisations in the United States.
Yep.
Isn't there a lesson in that if you create a single powerful police force, it abuses its power? And the reason we've got the police structured as we have is to prevent that type of excessive police power.
Right. Well, so we don't know what's likely to happen. But whenever we've seen great coagulance of power, in the hands of people who appear to be above politics, or try to be, as the West Midlands Chief Constable proved conclusively, you see shocking results. We get enough shocking results out of the police. I love what the police do. I can't imagine how difficult their job is. But there seems to be things going wrong, left, right and centre. I think this is going to become slightly worse. And the main issue I have, I don't care what system we have, I actually want to see police officers. Do you know what I saw? I was in Leicester Square the other day, and there were 2 or 3 officers who were dressed, looking in different directions. Clearly, there was a crime issue, probably phones or something like that. And these people were looking for these kinds of things. I thought, that is the first time I had literally seen that in literally decades. In my own, I live in Weybridge in Surrey, I think I've seen once in 20 years of living there 2 police officers walking down the street. If Ms Mahmood is saying that under this system, we are going to see more officers visibly,
but that doesn't
locally,
need a reform of all the constabularies across the country. That just means the chief constables tell them to get out of their offices.
So if that doesn't mean that, for most people, this is just a little bit of pushing pieces of paper around a desk in the Home Office. The other puzzle I have with Miss Mahmood is this takes a lot of organisation. She's only been doing the job about 20 minutes. Was this something that was going to be done anyway? Or has she said, right, well, I'm going to accelerate it and I'm going to focus on it? It looks to me as though it's been thrown out as a PR exercise. I'd be very interested to know, what do police officers actually think? I know what I think. If I see local police officers, I will cheer from the rooftops. If I don't, this is a waste of time and money.
This is a rehashed Blair project, isn't it? That they were going to do this prior to 2010. It didn't happen. They brought it back. Labour likes big organisations, but we know that big organisations don't axiomatically turn out to be more efficient. And to get the American example again, ICE turns out to be a massive abuser of power, and that these large central bodies... Our Victorian ancestors were right to have a diverse police force who don't concentrate power with overmighty politicians and excessively enthusiastic policemen.
2 points, really. First, I think you've got to retain a certain amount of local accountability for these police, and the bigger they are, if you now have regional police forces, which is really what they're saying, it's much harder to organise any accountability. People coming along and saying, well, we want you to spend more money doing burglary and less money on whatever. And also the accountability of local accountability of appointing and sacking the chief constables, because what she's proposing is that the Home Secretary will appoint chief constables in future and sack them. Now that's already happens with the Metropolitan Police, although it's done in conjunction with the Mayor. I think it would be rather dangerous to allow the Home Secretary to be able to appoint 14 chief constables. Is it 14? I think the number. And you can see circumstances where certain parties might come in and decide they're going to sack all the chief constables and bring in their own people.
That's the point. I actually think Shabana Mahmood is, as far as I can tell, a good Home Secretary and a decent person. But we can't always rely on the good chap theory of government, and we have to have structures that protect us from politicians who may have malevolent aims. And I think you're absolutely right. A Home Secretary who appoints and fires 14 police chiefs can get 14 of them in one room and decide a national policy, which with 47 is almost impossible to do.
I mean, the Police and Crime Commissioners had become, which were brought in by Theresa May,
they didn't work.
15 years ago. They have become a bit of a joke, and they've somehow got to bring together representatives of all the local councils in those particular areas, which is easier to do if your police force is within one county, which most of them are. If you're within several counties, it gets pretty unwieldy.
I tell you what was a good thing in all this, though, the only good thing, and that had nothing to do with this massive reorganisation, of which we all know, if we're all here in 5 years' time, they will be having a major deconstruct. It's the facial technology. Facial technology, honestly, they've been doing it in Croydon, haven't they? It's been a fantastic success. They have been nicking people galore that they had no idea were hanging around. And because it just all recognise it. We get this all over the country. I know there's a lot of people worried about, you know, where they stand in it. But as long as you're not trying to kill anybody or you're not trying to rob any houses, you don't have to worry about facial technology. But anyway, it's a fantastic thing.
Yeah, you see, I think that facial technology is all right with local police forces, because then the Home Secretary can't decide that Michael Crick's written a nasty newspaper article about her and he's got to be tracked down.
Yeah.
That local is an enormous protection, because then you're quite likely to use it for the purposes you suggest, not for the nefarious ones that overmighty politicians might use.
But she also announced that she was scrapping the non-crime hates.
Yeah, which is a good thing.
I mean, that was a good thing.
The other problem is if you centralise things more and more, then you take the likelihood is you take resources away from small towns and rural areas,
You do.
and you give
We
them
will
to the
never
big
see
cities.
a policeman again in West Hertfordshire. Well, if it's the one standing with the thing getting speeders, I hope we never do. Anyway, thank you to my panel. In a moment, we've got something very exciting.
Chagos surrender humiliation continues. Today they were hoping to...
The brilliant Shadow Foreign Secretary Priti Patel yesterday accused the government of sabotaging opportunities to debate the failing Chagos bill. Is it time Labour gave up on its failed Chagos surrender?
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's unsettled in the UK at the moment and very unsettled across southern parts of Europe. Storm Joseph is bringing some very heavy rain across parts of Portugal, Spain, also Gibraltar as we go through the rest of today and into tomorrow. We're talking 50 to 100 millimetres of rain in just 24 hours. And it's similarly unsettled further east around Italy and neighbouring nations. A huge amount of rain coming, the risk of thunder, also some significant snow building up. More unsettled weather to come through this week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Storm Chandra thankfully starting to move away now, but risk of icy patches overnight following the rain and hill snow in many places. And a drier, brighter day expected through Wednesday, but we do still have some wet and windy weather, especially across Northern Ireland into much of Scotland as Chandra slowly moves away. The rain and hill snow fizzling away overnight, but continuing across parts of east and northeast Scotland. Elsewhere, further showers into the south and southwest, in between clear spells and falling temperatures. As a result, icy patches will form across the northern two-thirds of the UK. Some slippery surfaces around first thing Wednesday, but there will be some drier and brighter weather as well, lighter winds with a more pleasant start, I suspect, compared with how Tuesday began for many places. Still some showers running into the English Channel coasts and across much of the rest of England into Wales. Plenty of dry and bright weather, albeit with chill in the air and those slippery surfaces to watch out for. Northern Ireland, sunshine first thing, likewise for the west and south of Scotland, but we've still got some rain and some hill snow across the north and northeast of Scotland. Gusty winds here, lighter winds elsewhere, although it will turn blustery once again into Northern Ireland, West Wales and the southwest by the afternoon, with further heavy showers in places, particularly Northern Ireland and Cornwall. Sunshine elsewhere with lighter winds, a more pleasant afternoon, I suspect, for many, with temperatures reaching 6 to 9 Celsius. Into Thursday, a dry start for many, but not for all. We've still got some rain in the northeast of Scotland. We've got some showers in the west as well. But it's this system coming on later in the day that will bring more wet weather to those parts of the UK where we don't need more wet weather, the southwest of England in particular. That then clears to showers on Friday and more unsettled weather yet again this weekend.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewbs, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dewbs and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The brilliant Shadow Foreign Secretary, Priti Patel, yesterday asked an urgent question to the Foreign Office, accusing the government of humiliating Britain further by delaying parliamentary debate on the controversial Chagos Bill, claiming Labour plans to hand the islands to Mauritius are now collapsing after President Donald Trump withdrew his support.
Labour's Chagos surrender humiliation continues. They were hoping to force through in the House of Lords their surrender bill. But after the Conservatives pointed out on how their surrender would violate our existing international obligations and challenged the government, they pulled the bill from the House of Lords order paper today, rather than being defeated. And in their rush to appease the wishes of their left-wing lawyer friends, Labour overlooked this very 1966 treaty between the UK and the US, which states that the British Indian Ocean Territory shall remain under the United Kingdom's sovereignty.
Ministers accusing Conservative peers of playing parliamentary games and risking national security. Is it time Labour abandoned the failed and embarrassing Chagos surrender? I'm really pleased to be joined now by the lawyer and former Advocate General for Scotland, Lord Keane. Lord Keane, thank you for joining me. The urgent question yesterday was really interesting because, as I understand it, only one Labour MP intervened. The government benches weren't supporting the government position at all. So are we now seeing the policy collapsing?
I'm not sure if we're seeing the party collapsing, but we're seeing evidence of very material doubts on the part of Labour, as well as other parties within Parliament, about the reasons for the Mauritius Treaty. I think there are two issues here. The first one is a constitutional problem because at present, Parliament is being asked to pass a law that can only come into force with the consent of President Trump. And that's a very unusual situation for a sovereign parliament. The second issue concerns the flaws within the Mauritius Treaty itself. On the first point, as the Shadow Foreign Secretary pointed out, there is in place already a 1966 treaty entered into between the United States and the then Labour government, which allows the United States the use of the base at Diego Garcia, and which expressly provides that the base shall remain under UK sovereignty, which is necessary in order that the US can actually enjoy the rights that they've been granted. The Labour government has now conceded, and it's taken some time, that the terms of the bill that goes through Parliament at the present time conflicts with that treaty. What the bill says is that His Majesty shall cease to be sovereign over the Chagos Archipelago, and in particular, the base at Diego Garcia. Now, it follows that if the present bill passes into law, it cannot be brought into force unless or until President Trump agrees to an amendment to the 1966 treaty. And at the present time, he's indicated no such clear intention. So we would end up with a situation in which Parliament had passed an act that said His Majesty was no longer sovereign in respect of Diego Garcia, but in respect of which the Labour government could not ratify its new Mauritius Treaty that says that Mauritius has sovereignty. So
absolutely,
so some sort of legal limbo.
The commencement of the Act could not happen until it was approved not just by the King with the royal assent, but by the President of the United States having to give presidential assent, which, as I think you rightly say, would be constitutionally very odd. And there's also this issue that's come up about Mauritius belonging to an anti-nuclear convention, which means that the Americans wouldn't be able to have any of their nuclear equipment in Diego Garcia, which must also be a problem for the United States.
Indeed. It is something called the Pelindaba Treaty. Some of your viewers may not be familiar with it. I certainly wasn't until very recently. But Mauritius is a signatory to that treaty, along with about 40 other African and Indian Ocean territories or nations. And in terms of that treaty, Mauritius is prohibited from storing any nuclear weapons on its sovereign territory. So if the Chagos archipelago, including Diego Garcia, becomes Mauritius sovereign territory, the US will be effectively prohibited from retaining nuclear weapons on that base, which rather undermines the whole purpose of the base, which is as a forward point for its strategic B-2 nuclear-capable bombers, and also as the point at which their nuclear submarines can dock.
All right, well, Lord Keane, thank you very much for joining me. I'm so pleased to be talking to you. I'll tell my viewers we used to sit on a cabinet subcommittee together, and whenever you spoke, it was like Zeus. You spoke and that was it. So thank you very much for joining me and explaining things with such wonderful clarity.
Good night, Jacob.
Goodbye. In a moment, the enigmatic Council of Europe is working on a motion to ban conversion therapy, a proposal put forward by a Labour MP. But what do we know about the Council of Europe? Do we deserve more transparency over the way our country is governed?
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
A European body most people never hear about is pursuing a Europe-wide ban on conversion therapy, following a motion led by the British Labour MP Kate Osborne. The Council of Europe, a 46-country organisation separate from the EU, which exists supposedly to promote human rights, democracy and the rule of law across Europe. Its parliamentary assembly is formed of MPs and peers sent by national parliaments, including a UK delegation from both the Commons and the Lords. Actually, lots of other places don't have Lords, unlucky places that they are, benighted lands, less happy lands. They debate and vote on resolutions that do not become laws, but heavily influence domestic policy and legislation across Europe and wider than the European Union. So why do we never hear about this body that has such an influence over our lives? And should we be involved in it at all? Well, my panel is still here. Kelvin, we've left the European Union. We've got this ridiculous body which houses the European Convention on Human Rights. And it has this assembly which is now going to say that conversion therapy should be banned, say that people can't talk to their children about sex changes.
The parents won't be allowed to have the final or any word in it. And neither would, it looks as though the only person that will be allowed to have the word in that, and this is only one particular little thing we've discovered about this, seems to be the child itself, and their self-determination is enough to see everybody off. But the truth about the matter is, as of tonight, I'd never heard of this organisation.
Had you not?
No, I'd never heard of it. And I don't think that anybody among your viewers will have known that it had any kind of impact on their lives at all. And the only issue that I was taken with there was in what sense have what is taken away from this Council of Europe that comes back over here, how does that work its way into our politics, our elected democratic politics?
Well, it becomes part of the policy of the Council of Europe, to which we are a signatory, and the European Convention on Human Rights is housed there, and the court is tied in with it. So it doesn't make law for us, but it has a degree of influence.
Well, you keep saying that, but I'd like to hear some examples of where it's had influence in the past over policies, contrary to what the British Parliament want to do.
Look at the court, and you've got the court that hears.
With the court, yes.
The court has an effect. It's not direct effect like the European Court of Justice. It is one that Parliament then has to accept. But the court is sitting there hearing what the Assembly has to say. The Assembly is as close as the court gets to a legislative body for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, well, I mean, both this government and the previous government have talked about bringing in bills to ban conversion therapy, haven't they? So it may well be that if they do this, they're in line with the government's thinking. But there's sort of two issues here, aren't there? Whether we believe in conversion therapy and whether we allow the Council of Europe. But if you're right, if you can come up with cases where Britain was believing something in one area, and suddenly the Council came along and we had to scrap our laws and overturn them and did all that.
If Kelvin hasn't heard about it, why are we belonging to shadowy bodies with 46 other countries?
Well, because it's all part of, partly
what's the point
belonging to international bodies and politicians talking to each other, particularly in Europe, particularly now, is a jolly good idea, particularly when we're not in the European Union. We need to stick together with the Europeans if the Americans
stick together on
aren't going to...
conversion therapy.
Well, not necessarily.
I don't want to stick together on conversion therapy.
We need to be more integrated, and particularly the Americans aren't going to stand by us.
But what does that do for voters in North East Somerset and Hanham?
Because in the long term, we're going to have to stand up as Europe together to the Russians. That's what it does to your potential
therapy,
voters.
According to Michael, will help us stand up to the Russians.
No, I did not say that, and you know I didn't.
I paraphrase.
Anything that would lead to standing up to the Russians or the Chinese against anybody. Our country seems to lack any kind of willpower that lasts longer than a vote in the House of Commons these days. I'm difficult to know whether I believe that our country is actually on its knees. I'm not sure whether I'm in the Farage boat, but I'm definitely not in the boat that says that our country is doing well at the moment. So if we could break free from some of these organisations and literally try and create some kind of wealth and some kind of happiness. I'm not blaming the Council of Europe for all this, but I am saying there is something that has gone wrong with our politics, where our people, anywhere you go right now, you try and have a discussion with anybody, they are beyond gloomy. And yet, the funny was, I spent 6 weeks in Australia, and all I saw was, "Good day, mate. How are you?" It was fantastic.
But they don't know how they're governed. That's what really annoys people. They think they vote in British elections, and then they find that a body in Europe, thinking we've left Europe, is going to be coming up with laws that we should pass.
Well, ever since there have been treaties with other countries, going back how many? I don't know when the first treaty was, but you'll probably know, thousands and thousands of years. When you do a treaty or you come to an agreement with people abroad, you cede a bit of your sovereignty in return for a bit of theirs, and so.
But not
I think
laws.
if we're going to say, right, well, that's it, we're leaving NATO, we're leaving the Council of Europe.
NATO is very good. I like NATO.
Well, there we are, you see. You're willing to...
But NATO is a voluntary association. It can't force us to do things.
No.
Even under Article 5.
But
all right, I'm getting nagged in my ear, Patrick, that I've got to come and talk to you. There are bossy people telling me that you are on standby to spend 2 hours, I hope, talking about the virtues of Somerset.
Yes, well, we actually do have some breaking news, Jacob, and that is that Sir Keir Starmer worked for free on a legal case that led to a witch hunt of British troops. It triggered years of criminal investigations into soldiers who were wrongly accused of war crimes in Iraq. That's just landed on the Daily Telegraph. It's a huge, huge story. We'll give it to you next.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Storm Chandra thankfully starting to move away now, but risk of icy patches overnight following the rain and hill snow in many places, and a drier, brighter day expected through Wednesday, but we do still have some wet and windy weather, especially across Northern Ireland into much of Scotland as Chandra slowly moves away. The rain and hill snow fizzling away overnight, but continuing across parts of east and northeast Scotland. Elsewhere, further showers into the south and southwest, in between clear spells and falling temperatures. As a result, icy patches will form across the northern two-thirds of the UK. Some slippery surfaces around first thing Wednesday, but there will be some drier and brighter weather as well, lighter winds with a more pleasant start, I suspect, compared with how Tuesday began for many places. Still some showers running into the English Channel coasts and across much of the rest of England into Wales. Plenty of dry and bright weather, albeit with chill in the air and those slippery surfaces to watch out for. Northern Ireland, sunshine first thing, likewise for the west and south of Scotland, but we've still got some rain and some hill snow across